Part 21. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 202. On one side were the werewolves howling loudly through the night sky, and on the other side were the army of corpses that were solemn and silent. Outside the town of Lehman, a strange contrast appeared. In the rolling wolf tide, werewolves were smashed in the head by zombies. And the werewolves who were not hit in the head would join the battle again with the blessing of recovery ability. The advantage of corpses is that they are not afraid of death, but the disadvantage is that they are not flexible enough. Among the army of corpses, there are some zombie corpses interspersed and walking. These zombie corpses also have the abilities they had before they died. They can use the sewing thread to quickly sew up the broken corpses. The werewolf battle line could not advance, and the two sides were deadlocked in place. The black air of the stone tablet drifted away, and the werewolves who died on the battlefield also stood up in the black air and joined the army of corpses. In other words, the longer the time dragged on, the more werewolves died, and the stronger Old Grey would be. The seemingly unstoppable wolf tide was actually in a passive position. Just when the people of Lehman Town thought they were going to win, Butcher looked at Old Grey, who was trembling more and more. Controlling thousands of zombies must be a heavy burden. Butcher walked forward, let Old Grey relax a little, otherwise he will be exhausted to death. As soon as the voice fell, a level 3 werewolf rushed out of the darkness opposite. 4 or 5 level 3 werewolves rushed to the front line. The level 3 werewolves waved their claw blades, and several claw blade phantoms flew out. One attack could defeat several zombies. If these broken zombies were not reprocessed with sewing threads, they would not be able to stand up and fight again. Butcher tore off his flower apron, which was black and red, and very dirty. Under the flower apron was Butcher's naked upper body. As Butcher stepped forward step by step, his figure was also growing rapidly. Rudolph was a little surprised. Is Butcher a giant? Soon, Butcher became 30 meters tall. Level 3 giants are much taller than those level 2 zombie giants, which can only reach a height of about 10 meters. Rudolph looked up and saw 2 huge buttocks. The poor clothes on Butcher's body had been torn apart long ago. No wonder Butcher hid so well. If Rudolph was a giant, he would not transform at will. It was too shameful. What surprised Rudolph even more was the bone that Butcher had been holding in his hand. Bones are also body tissues and can also become huge. This bone also grew larger as Butcher grew larger. The 40-meter-long big bone was like a terrifying stick, taller than Butcher. Butcher ran forward quickly, and the ground was shaking when his huge sole stepped down. He could jump nearly 10 meters with each step. His soles were also nearly 5 meters long, and he even accidentally stepped on 1 or 2 Old Grey's bodies. When Butcher rushed to the front line, he swung his 40-meter-long big bone. The giant moved in slow motion. The big bone was too long and too big, so it only looked slow, but its actual speed was very fast. The huge bone joints fell to the ground. I don't know if it hit the level 3 werewolf. A level 3 werewolf crawled up from the dust. He exerted all his strength at the last moment and avoided being smashed into a pulp. The level 3 werewolf sent a claw blade phantom to the nearest big bone stick. The phantom cut into the big bone, but the big bone stick was too thick and there was still a long way to go before it could be cut off. The level 3 werewolf stopped entangled with the bone stick and turned to attack the giant dozens of meters away. Butcher couldn't move his feet quickly because he didn't need to. The clawblade phantom shot at his ankle, which could indeed cut the skin and flesh, but it couldn't do anything to the ankle bone. As for the broken wound, the flesh and blood swelled like a tumor, and shrank like a deflated ball. Only a shallow layer of the wound remained, and the flesh and blood inside had healed under the squeeze. The level 3 werewolf lost consciousness for a moment, and his attack was ineffective. Before he could react, the big bone stick hit his head again. This time, the big bone stick successfully hit the level 3 werewolf. When the big bone stick was raised again, some of the level 3 werewolves remained on the ground, some stuck to the bone stick, and minced meat fell from the bone stick from time to time. After Butcher joined the battlefield, the situation became clear in an instant. The level 3 werewolves moved towards Butcher, wanting to clean up the giant, so the zombies of Old Grey in other places once again prevailed. Just when everyone was overjoyed, Rudolph suddenly frowned, and Vanya beside him suddenly became nervous. This was the suppression from the bloodline. The wolf tied on the opposite side was even more manic, and their leader, the level 4 werewolf, was moving forward. Rudolph spread his bat wings, and Vanya also spread his bat wings. Rudolph. Remember my zombie teeth? Zombie teeth? Rudolph has zombie teeth, but didn't he pick them out from Salem's mouth? If you say it's yours, then it's yours. Old Grey's forehead was covered with dense sweat, and there were also drops of sweat on his chin. Not only were his legs shaking, but his whole body was shaking. Take all the night corpses with you, and use my zombie teeth to command the level 3 knights to fight against the level 4 werewolves. Rudolph knew that controlling all the zombies had exhausted Old Grey. He no longer had the energy to fight against the level 4 werewolves, and the zombie teeth would play an important role at this time. Understood. Rudolph flew into the air, and Vanya followed him. The two of them flew towards Old Grey's level 3 knight. The level 4 werewolf walked out of the darkness, but he was a little surprised that two level 3 apostles flew out of Lehman Town again. This Lehman Town is also very evil, and so many level 3 apostles appeared one after another. Zombies, giants, blood clans, wizards. The level 3 knight rode a warhorse, which was also a dead body, but still full of strength. The sound of horse hooves sounded, like a battle horn, and the surrounding knight bodies gathered towards the level 3 knight. Rudolph's star power was poured into the teeth of the zombies, transformed into zombie power, and commanded all the knights to rush forward. Although there were level 3 knights, Rudolph's target was the level 4 werewolf. The cold night wind passed through Rudolph's cheeks, and his heart beat rapidly in his chest. Fear made Rudolph extremely nervous. This was a challenge beyond a level. Rudolph was not sure that he could resist the level 4 werewolf. He had accumulated so little in the stage of level 3 wizards, and only mastered the witch language of Gemini, a wind sign. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. Rudolph did not ask why Old Grey and Butcher stood up at this time. The reasons for the three of them might be the same. After all, they have some feelings for the town of Lehman behind them. If possible, they want to try to see if they can save Lehman from being destroyed and if they can prevent the people in Lehman from becoming meat. The level 4 werewolf stood in the pack of wolves, watching two people with bat wings fly over the giant Butcher and fly towards him. When he got closer, he could already tell that one of the two people was a vampire and the other was a wizard with a batwing magic weapon. Below the two people, there was a team of knights. The level 4 werewolf let out a dull roar. Among the knights, there was the corpse of a level 3 knight. The knights were so disgusting. They always looked like the son of destiny, shouting and wanting to kill people above their level. Even the dead knights were equally disgusting. The body of the level 3 knight shot out a protective chain from behind, connecting to the abdomen of the level 2 knight and the level 1 knight behind. For a moment, the momentum of the corpse of the level 3 knight suddenly soared, becoming the most dazzling existence on the battlefield. A purple fireball suddenly appeared in the night sky. The purple fireball split several times in the air, and finally turned into 8 2-meter-high fireballs, which hit the position of the level 4 werewolf like a meteor. The level 4 werewolf opened its wolf mouth and breathed out a breath at the purple fireball flying over. Unlike the level 3 werewolf who can only trigger 3 claw blade phantoms when waving its wolf claws, the level 4 werewolf can shoot out a continuous phantom wolf blade from its mouth with one breath. These phantom wolf blades are like a tornado, densely packed and extremely numerous. The 8 purple fireballs were instantly annihilated in the claw blade phantom tornado. Rudolph tried a little and found that it was really too difficult to challenge a higher level. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 203. Another wolf blade breath rushed over, not only breaking up Rudolph's purple fireball, but also continuing to attack Rudolph in the sky. The phantom breath formed a tornado. When facing this breath directly, he found that even the light was distorted. The ground that Rudolph saw through the breath was broken, and the werewolf's bloody mouth was also broken. The second time facing the wolf blade breath, Rudolph saw clearly that there were countless wolf blade phantoms of different sizes in the breath. If hit head-on, they would definitely be crushed into blood mist. Rudolph desperately poured star power into the bat wings. The wolf blade breath with a diameter of several meters, like a tornado, flew past Rudolph's scalp. When Rudolph stabilized his body in the air again, he found that the broken hair he had just cut off was floating around. He couldn't help but touch his head with his hand. His hair was messy. This was not a good sign. Luckily, Rudolph was timid enough, and the height was relatively high. In addition, he had a dangerous instinct to remind him. Otherwise, if he was hit by the wolf blade's breath, he would have become a blood cloud in the sky. Rudolph used his witchcraft to delay a little time, allowing the knight's body to move a long distance. At this time, the level 3 knight's body was followed by several level 2 knights, and they had already rushed to the level 4 werewolf. The knight team that briefly possessed the power of a level 4 knight suddenly collided with the level 4 werewolf. The flesh and armor collided with each other, producing a huge roar. For a moment, everyone looked at the center of the battlefield. In the team of knights, whether it was a knight or a warhorse, they were all glowing with a hazy white light, and the guarding chain was also glowing with white light, making the cavalry team form a whole. The knight, who was not inferior to the level 4 werewolf in strength, smashed the level 4 werewolf with one sword. The heavy broadsword chopped on the level 4 werewolf's shoulder, and stopped only when it hit the bone, smashing the level 4 werewolf's front feet into the ground. The level 4 werewolf was not panicked at all, and his wolf eyes were full of contempt. After all, these were just corpses, not so flexible. Even if a real level 3 knight came, he might not be able to step on him steadily to advance, let alone some corpses. Rudolph in the sky frowned. Just this blow, he felt a sore muscle all over his body after overexerting himself. In his mouth, the teeth of the zombies gave him a bad feeling, as if he had eaten the sourest lemon. Controlling an entire cavalry team, his star power was consumed too quickly. I really don't know how Old Grey operated so many corpses. Just this team of cavalry made Rudolph feel tired quickly. Rudolph had no choice but to let Vanya fly high in the sky. Vanya didn't need to attack at this time, he had more important things to do now. The forbidden technique of Scorpio Puppet has another ability, which is to pass the power of the apostle in the puppet to Rudolph. The puppet is not a corpse of a zombie. The puppet has the ability to move independently and can also create the power of the apostle. At this time, Vanya hid in the sky and passed the blood power generated in his body to Rudolph. Rudolph then used the bat wings to reversely convert this power into star power, so as to supply the huge consumption of the zombie teeth. At this time, Rudolph had twice the star power of other wizards. If he could make a few more puppets, his star power would be the best at the same level, and he could kill his opponent with endless witchcraft alone. No wonder Butcher said that Old Grey consumed a lot and might die of exhaustion. If it weren't for Vanya, Rudolph wouldn't have lasted long. Vanya found a good place to hide, and he hid in the clouds floating in the night sky. Looking at those clouds, Rudolph suddenly had a brilliant idea. Vanya received Rudolph's idea, and while passing the power of the apostle to Rudolph, he completed Rudolph's plan. Rudolph focused on manipulating the cavalry, but he soon discovered that many of his orders could not be fulfilled by the knights. Although these corpses have the abilities they had in life, their reaction speed and actions are very stiff. They can only complete simple mechanical commands such as sprinting in a straight line and retreating in a straight line. Turning his head to look at the battlefield behind him, there were thousands of corpses. Old Grey could actually let different apostles use different abilities. It was really an amazing manipulation ability. The battlefield was filled with black air, and it was unknown what the stone tablet of Old Grey was. It seemed that the black air had a great bonus to the zombies. Under Rudolph's command, the cavalry rushed along a straight line again and again, and left the battle along a straight line, which seemed a bit stiff. The level 4 werewolf soon discovered this situation. He was just hit by the level 4 Night Corpse 2 or 3 times at the beginning, and then he immediately changed his strategy and chose to dodge, constantly consuming the Knight's power. At this time, the level 4 werewolf did not know that these corpses were controlled by the wizards in the sky. He just wanted to use up the power of the zombies as soon as possible and let these damn corpses fall down by themselves. After more than 10 minutes, the werewolf's patience was exhausted. He tried to fight back and wanted to completely destroy the Knight's body. The target of the level 4 werewolf is the level 2 Knight and level 1 Knight corpses that provide extreme power. These corpses have weaker combat power and lower protection. If the cavalry of the cavalry is destroyed, the level of the level 3 Knight will naturally fall. The level 4 werewolf smashed the bodies of 2 level 2 Knights with just one attack. After the death of these 2 Knights, the state of the level 3 Knight was also somewhat unstable. As a last resort, Rudolph went down himself and began to walk on the tightrope. In the gaps between the Knight's attacks, he fired purple fireballs at the level 4 werewolf to prevent the Knight's body from being quickly damaged. 8 huge purple fireballs fell, hitting the level 4 werewolf again and again. The dark purple flames in the night sky have already revealed Rudolph's identity. This is the witchcraft that only Scorpio wizards major in. Even a level 4 werewolf doesn't want to be contaminated by the toxins created by Scorpio witchcraft. As the level 4 werewolf approached the front of the battlefield, he raised his head and used the wolf blade to spit out the split purple fire. The long battle line was filled with black air, but the level 4 werewolf was surrounded by purple poisonous smoke. This place became a restricted area for werewolves. No werewolf dared to approach the poisonous smoke that looked very dangerous. Butcher always paid attention to the battle in the center of the battlefield. He knew that the level 4 werewolf was the most critical place in the battle tonight. Before the battle started, Old Grey said that the level 4 werewolf needed Rudolph to hold him back. He didn't quite understand it, but now seeing Rudolph's results, Butcher felt that Rudolph was really good. No wonder Old Grey valued him. At least this huge star power was not like what an apostle of Rudolph's age should have. Unfortunately, level 3 is level 3, and the gap is too big. Rudolph has tried his best. After delaying for 20 minutes, he was exhausted. Especially the damage to the bodies of low-level knights made Rudolph more stressed. Seeing the level 4 werewolf jump into the air and try to attack Rudolph, Butcher roared and rushed towards the level 4 werewolf. Behind him, there were already 4 pools of blood mud, which were the bodies of 4 level 3 werewolves. Werewolves, blood clans, and evil god priests are the apostles with the largest number. As a price, their individual combat power is lower than that of apostles of the same level, so several level 3 werewolves are not the opponents of Giant Butcher. Seeing Butcher also rushing towards the level 4 werewolf, Rudolph dived down decisively. There could be no hesitation at this time. The bone stick hit the level 4 werewolf. The werewolf did not dodge or avoid, and breathed a wolf blade at the joints of the bone stick. The huge and indestructible joints were actually turned into bone powder layer by layer in the wolf blade breath and peeled off and scattered. The bone stick was smaller, and the level 4 werewolf felt that as long as he breathed the wolf blade again, he could destroy the giant's weapon. At this moment, the level 4 werewolf suddenly saw the wizard flying out from the shadow of the bone stick. After rushing to the nearby area, Rudolph waved his cane. 8 wolf blade phantoms shot at the level 4 werewolf, and the level 4 werewolf realized that this wizard actually had a relic made by a level 3 werewolf. How to say it, 8 wolf blade phantoms are equivalent to 2 or 3 level 3 werewolves attacking him at the same time. The wolf blade phantom cut towards the level 4 werewolf's body, but in an instant, the level 4 werewolf shook his shoulders, and the hair on his body instantly stood up, one by one at a 45 degrees angle backwards. There was no blood flying, the wolf blade phantom only hit the dense hair. The werewolf's hair was floating in the air, but the werewolf itself was unharmed. The werewolf pulled the corner of his mouth contemptuously. It was okay for a level 4 knight to cut his flesh and blood, but it was really stupid for a wizard to want to attack him with a level 3 werewolf magic weapon. If a level 3 werewolf can break through the defense of a level 4 werewolf so easily, then wouldn't all level 3 werewolves be able to be promoted? But the next moment, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the level 4 werewolf. A sharp surgical band with a silver metallic luster suddenly shot towards the eyes of the level 4 werewolf. No matter what creature it is, the eyeball is the most vulnerable part. The level 4 werewolf shook his head suddenly, but it was difficult to prevent the scalpel from piercing the eyeball. The werewolf waved his wolf claws fiercely, randomly sending claw blade phantoms around, forcing Rudolph and Butcher to retreat far away. The werewolf was ruthless and squeezed the eyeball with his wolf claws. The eyeball turned into an ellipsoid shape, but he squeezed the scalpel out of the eyeball. However, this also gave Rudolph and Butcher a precious breathing opportunity. Butcher bent down and grabbed a werewolf, twisted his fingers, and the werewolf's flesh and blood separated, and the meat pulp flowed out from his fingers. The 4 leg bones of this werewolf were left. Butcher's first bone stick was damaged, but he was able to quickly make other bone sticks. Another bone stick fell from the sky and hit the level 4 werewolf. Rudolph could also go to the back to find other knights to replenish the consumption of low-level knights. The level 4 werewolf became more and more irritated. These 2 level 3 apostles actually delayed him for so long. The level 4 werewolf no longer blindly resisted and accelerated his lateral movement. After dodging 2 heavy blows from the bone sticks in a row, the level 4 werewolf directly released the wolf blade breath to Butcher's abdomen. Butcher had tried his best to dodge, but his huge body of 30 meters tall moved relatively slowly. His side abdomen was hit by the breath, and a large piece disappeared directly. The wolf blade breath left a semi-cylindrical gap directly on Butcher's side abdomen. The flesh and intestines in the gap disappeared and turned into blood mist and exploded. Butcher's facial muscles twitched, but he shook his waist slightly, and the flesh around the wound swelled and enlarged, and the torn abdominal wound was squeezed together and restored to its original state. Although he could control any part of his body to grow or shrink, the injury consumed Butcher greatly. At this time, another group of night corpses rushed over from the army of corpses in the back. These were the night corpses summoned by Rudolph with the teeth of zombies. The level 3 knight replenished a lot of low-level consumables, and once again filled with strength, he rushed towards the level 4 werewolf. For high-level knights, low-level knights are very important. High-level knights give them land and titles just to get the loyalty of low-level knights at the moment of life and death. There was no joy on Rudolph's face. Just when he summoned these knights, he briefly competed with Old Grey for the control of these knights. The distance was too far, so he could not tell Old Grey, and could only try to take control in the shortest time. Rudolph clearly sensed that Old Grey's control was very weak and almost collapsed at the touch of a button. Such a huge army of corpses might have been easy for Old Grey to handle when he was young, but now Old Grey is probably at the end of his strength. At this time, in the distance, Old Grey's breathing was like a bellows with air leaking everywhere, and the sound was not like what humans could make, rough and hoarse. A slight cough could bring out a handful of blood. He could only lean on the stone tablet and barely look forward. Cooper stood aside, looking at Old Grey anxiously, and then at the battlefield ahead. God, can you give Lehman Town a miracle so that the bad situation can improve? Old Grey is about to give up. At the same time, Rudolph looked up at the sky, and what he wanted finally came. Vanya started from a distance, flapping his iron bat wings to create a strong wind, driving a large cloud around to the top of the battlefield. Rudolph flew into the sky, plunged into the clouds, and disappeared. Soon, people on the battlefield saw that under the shining moon, a dark purple cloud suddenly appeared in the night sky. The purple clouds were dark and black, obviously not ordinary clouds. A werewolf suddenly raised his hand and touched his cheek during the battle with the zombies. Is it raining? He looked up and found drops of dark purple raindrops dripping. As the raindrops fell on the werewolf, he instantly felt the palpitations of danger. The next moment, he felt numb and painful. It was obviously cold rain, but it made him feel hot and stinging. This was a local drizzle outside the town of Lehman, and the abnormality was only shrouded in the drizzle above the battlefield. Toxin. It's a toxin. The toxin is so strong that it makes his vision blurred. A zombie knight took advantage of the situation and swung his broadsword to chop off the head of the werewolf in front of him. When the purple rain fell, the corpses had no concept of poisoning, and the poisoned werewolves. For a time, the werewolves' condition quickly deteriorated, and the front line of the corpses began to advance. Old Grey wiped away the tears from the corners of his eyes, swallowed the bloody taste in his mouth, and whispered, "Rudolph, you did a good job." Vanya flew to Butcher and shouted, "Open your mouth." Butcher opened his mouth and Vanya threw a tube of potion in. Butcher used his tongue to search for a long time in his mouth before squeezing the potion into his teeth and crushing it. Is this the taste of wolf poison potion? No. It's the antidote that can cure this purple rain poison. The level 4 werewolf's expression finally became serious. No matter how powerful the wolf blade breath was, it was impossible to disperse all the raindrops. He could only watch the purple rain fall on the werewolves. Just like he had just attacked the low-level knight, the wizard in the sky also launched a large-scale witchcraft and attacked all the low-level werewolves. It's really difficult. The level 4 werewolf really wants to know what is in this small broken town, and why these people are fighting to resist the wolf tide. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 204. Rudolph didn't want to kill all the werewolves with the poisonous rain. He didn't have that much star power. He just needed to slow down the werewolves' reaction speed and make their movements slower, so that the corpses wouldn't have so much trouble dealing with them. After releasing the purple rain, Rudolph almost exhausted all his star power. He retracted his bat wings and grabbed Vanya's ankle. The starlight shone on him, making Rudolph feel warm like sunlight. He slowly recovered his star power. In the previous attack, Rudolph took advantage of the chaos to shoot the scalpel into the werewolf's eyeball. The scalpel was also poisoned. Now the poison has spread in the body of the level 4 werewolf, and the level 4 werewolf has to devote some of its energy to fighting the scorpion toxin. The scalpel was squeezed out by the werewolf and fell to the ground. Rudolph used the Sagittarius witch language laser, and the scalpel flew back to Rudolph's hand. Telekinesis is one of the basic witchcrafts of the Sagittarius wizard. Every time he created a bit of star power, Rudolph would put it into the body of the level 4 werewolf. The werewolf has a very good physique, but his ability is not flexible enough. He has no good way to deal with the scorpion toxin and can only resist it. Butcher also found that the level 4 werewolf's movements became a little slower, not much slower, but it greatly reduced Butcher's pressure. The level 3 knights led by the level 4 werewolf did not charge due to lack of star power. They walked slowly around the level 4 werewolf to maintain the deterrence of the level 4 werewolf. Butcher was also very smart. As long as he saw that the level 4 werewolf wanted to fight back, he would retreat to the night. Time passed by, and Old Grey's army of corpses was gaining more and more advantages. In the army of corpses, the corpses of the zombies were extremely busy. The zombies walked on the battlefield with sewing threads in their hands. The dead werewolves did some simple processing in their hands and became Old Grey's new collection. As long as they gain an advantage, the army of corpses will fight more and more. As one grows, the other shrinks, and the number of werewolves caught in the purple rain is getting smaller and smaller. After the level 4 werewolf smashed Butcher's bone stick again, his face was full of mania. He was a level 4 werewolf, leading nearly 2,000 werewolves, but he was at such a disadvantage in front of the first human town he encountered. The 6 level 4 werewolves under the Red Wolf King attacked the 6 towns outside the city of Fabreau. He was assigned to Lehman Town, but he not only did not achieve any results, but was defeated. The small town of Lehman actually gathered 4 level 3 apostles, who not only delayed him, but also defeated his wolf-tide head-on. The level 4 werewolf shook his head, and his wolf pupils looked dull from time to time. The scorpion toxin in his body was very troublesome and had a certain impact on him. Behind Old Grey, the people of Lehman Town were all happy. I didn't expect that so many werewolves had not yet hit the defense line organized by the militia. It seems that as long as there are more than 10 minutes, the wolf tide can be repelled. Just when everything was developing in a good direction, a unique wolf howl came from the wilderness in the distance. This wolf howl was so high that Rudolph could hear it clearly in the sky. Butcher looked into the distance with some despair, and murmured, "Wolf King, the wild call of the level 5 Wolf King." Old Grey hunched over and leaned gently on the black stone tablet. At this moment, there was only despair in his eyes, even though he was experienced. He even felt that the world was a little fake. It would be fine if he met a level 4 werewolf, but how could there be a level 5 werewolf? Each apostle will have a qualitative improvement after level 5. Level 5 werewolves will awaken the ancestral wolf soul, be able to communicate with the soul of the ancestors, and use the wolf soul to influence all the werewolves in the tribe. The call of the Wolf King seemed to have some kind of magic. All the werewolves who heard the call of the Wolf King crawled on the ground one by one. They got on all fours and completely released the beast in their hearts, no longer standing like humans. The release of beast brought about another change in their bodies. The most conspicuous one was of course the level 4 werewolf. His body swelled again, especially the hind limbs. The soles of his feet became longer and turned into anti-joints. Then a giant wolf appeared in the center of the battlefield. This was the wolf form of the werewolf, which completely became a giant wolf. The wolf form of the level 4 werewolf was 5 meters tall at the shoulder, becoming a giant beast like a house. Rudolph felt that his toxins could not keep up with the changes in the body of the level 4 werewolf, and the poison effect was reduced again. The level 4 werewolf, who had completely lost his mind, was no longer affected by the scorpion paralysis toxin. Scorpiotoxin is a neurotoxin, and the wolf just relied on instinct to destroy everything in front of him. Not only the level 4 werewolf, but other werewolves were no longer affected by the toxin. They all became beasts driven by instinct at this moment. The level 4 wolf was 5 meters tall at the shoulder, the level 3 wolf was 3 meters tall at the shoulder, the level 2 wolf was 2 meters tall at the shoulder, and the level 1 wolf was 1 meter tall at the shoulder. The werewolves of all sizes rushed forward with a more fearless attitude. These werewolves no longer had any reason and only wanted to tear up everything in front of them. Rudolph had to shout down, "Butch! My toxin is useless." Butcher also saw that the level 4 wolf had gone completely crazy. He swung the bone stick with all his strength, trying to knock the level 4 magic wolf away. But the magic wolf opened its huge mouth and bit the bone stick directly. The magic wolf didn't even use the wolf blade breath, and it directly bit the bone stick to pieces. "Knight! Rudolph, let the knights come over." Rudolph had just gathered a little star power, and had to put it all on the cavalry, letting the cavalry rush towards the level 4 magic wolf. Butcher was forced to retreat step by step, and the army of Old Grey's corpses was also retreating rapidly. Originally, the wolf tide had been wiped out to only 800, and as the level 4 werewolves and the remaining few level 3 werewolves turned into magic wolves, the roll of the corpses decreased a lot. The army of corpses was rapidly decreasing, and the magic wolves opened their mouths and bit the corpses to pieces, and the corpses could no longer be reused. Old Grey's nostrils, corners of his eyes, and ears were all flowing with dirty black blood. Baby also saw that with the appearance of the level 5 Wolf King, just a howl of the Wolf King could completely change the situation, and even the Lehman Town Giant Alliance mentioned by Claude would be powerless to resist. Old Grey. Please hold on for a while. The Constitutional Police in Fabreau City will not let the wolf tide wreak havoc. They are coming soon. According to the system of the Alchemy Council, if a major disaster occurs, the Constitutional Army stationed in various places will attack, and will not sit idly by and watch the power of the Alchemy Council be destroyed by the wolf tide. Old Grey also knew that what Baby said was right, but the problem now was that the three of them might not be able to drag it until that time. Rudolph and Vanya worked together to create the power of the apostles and control the cavalry to stop the level 4 magic wolf. The irritable magic wolf had no sense of defense and rushed forward in a completely wound-for-wound behavior. Ignoring the broadsword that was slashing at its body, it could smash a knight's body with every wolf claw slap, and bite a knight every time it opened its mouth. Then it shook its head violently, directly smashed the body, and swallowed it into its stomach along with half of the armor. It's not that Rudolph and Butcher didn't work hard. The level 4 magic wolf's body was huge, and neither its strength nor its agility could stop it. Old Grey had to let some of the level 3 apostle corpses move towards the level 4 magic wolf to help Rudolph and Butcher stabilize the situation. But this is a seesaw, and you can't suppress the other end by suppressing one end. After a brief chaos, the two level 3 magic wolves broke through the front line of the army of corpses and rushed to the rear. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 205. The flames of war finally reached the eyes of the people of Lemang Town, with running and swooping demon wolves, roaring wolf howls, and corpses splattered everywhere in the sky. Faced with these demonic wolves at such a close distance, everyone realized what a terrible disaster the wolf tide was. Old Grey could no longer move, and there were fewer and fewer bodies in front of him. Two level 3 demon wolves led many demon wolves, tearing through the battle line like sharp knives. Those corpses of high-level apostles who were still on the front line had to shrink back, and the entire battle line also shrank back. Rudolph and Butcher were also retreating. The loss of knight corpses was very serious, and Rudolph needed to go to the rear to replenish some knight corpses. No matter where it is, the movements of the apostle's corpse are getting slower and slower and more stiff, because Old Grey's own body is gradually stiffening. He wants to raise his head to observe the battlefield, but it is difficult to even raise his head. His head became heavier and lower, until his chin rested on his chest. As a living corpse, he was very aware of his physical condition. Even without what happened today, he would have only been able to live for a month or two at most. Facing the charging demon wolf, Old Grey raised his hand, trying to control the corpses to stop the demon wolf, but his arm only raised for half a second before losing strength and falling heavily. The corpses on the battlefield shook momentarily, and almost all of them fell down in an instant. Baby's heart tightened. Could it be that Old Grey couldn't hold on any longer? Rudolph was looking for the knight's body, and at this time he had to pull out his hand and come to the front of Old Grey. With the purple fireball and the imaginary shadow of the wolf blade, the demon wolf that rushed forward was instantly killed by Rudolph. The fastest charging level 3 demon wolf was also targeted by Rudolph. After a lot of effort, Rudolph finally cut off the demon wolf's head. He was so anxious that he had to rush back to the level 4 demonic wolf as soon as possible. Vanya was left behind to help guard Old Grey. Rudolph looked back at the grey-faced Old Grey, feeling a little sad. Such an old living corpse cannot bear it anymore. Just then, Gray Sr. heard gunshots. Baby suddenly rushed to Old Gray and shouted, "We will also give you a chance to catch your breath." The police department and militiamen began to move forward, blocking Old Gray. The situation seemed to be more stable. Old Gray didn't have time to say anything more. He just turned to look at Cooper, who appeared next to him. "Cooper, I'll rely on you later." Cooper didn't understand why Old Gray said that. He just nodded heavily. He also wanted to do something. A strong black energy overflowed from the stone tablet behind Old Gray and enveloped Old Gray. After taking a big breath and inhaling the black air into his body, Old Gray's complexion became even darker, but he stood up. The black deathly air gave Old Gray the strength to shine again. The moment Old Gray stood up, all the corpses were swept away and filled with fighting power again. Just when Rudolph brought more night corpses and just formed a new night team, a vampire corpse appeared not far from Rudolph. "Rudolph, return the level 3 living corpse teeth to me. I'll do it. Take over the command of the night." Rudolph knew that this was Old Gray's request. The witchcraft scalpel in his sleeve fell into his hand. After flying slightly backward and out of the battle, he put the scalpel into his mouth. The scalpel is really sharp and can quickly open the gums. Holding the pain cane in his hand to ease his pain, Rudolph took out the level 3 zombie tooth and threw it to the vampire zombie. With his mouth full of blood, Rudolph once again threw himself into the battle with the level 4 demon wolf. No longer manipulating the knights, Rudolph can only rely on his own sorcery and witchcraft. It was impossible to fight head-on, so we could only delay as much time as possible. Fortunately, the purple fireball was dazzling enough to attract the attention of the level 4 demon wolf every time. Soon, the vampire zombies came to Old Gray with the teeth of level 3 zombies. Old Gray's face was filled with darkness, but his eyes were firm. "Listen, Cooper, you must have questions about why I am so helpful to you if we are not relatives. In addition to your talent, I will also tell you the real reason now. The stone tablet behind me is the corpse tablet of the underworld. Corpse monument and living corpse is the name of our genre. In this stone monument, the bodies and souls of the corpses of all generations are sealed. My soul will also enter after a while. Corpse tablets and living corpses of all generations have been exploring one thing. Resurrecting corpses is the ability of our living corpses. If the soul can also be resurrected, the combination of the two can make living corpses achieve immortality. I failed, Cooper. Your talent for reviving zombies is much higher than mine. I hope you can succeed. I hope you can fulfill the ideal of reviving corpses in the corpse monuments of all ages. Make a contract with the corpse monument and control all the corpses. This is the last time I'm going to help you." Old Gray twisted the teeth of the living corpse with his fingers, erased Rudolph's star power mark, and then placed the teeth of the living corpse in Cooper's hand. Rudolph in the distance was suddenly stunned. The teeth of the living corpse no longer belonged to him. Old Gray took back the teeth of the living corpse. The witch was made by Salem, but the original source may have been Old Gray. Cooper took the teeth of the living corpse. "Teacher, how do you make a contract with the living corpse monument? Take the teeth of the living corpse and stand in front of me. You haven't reached level 3 yet, so you can only rely on this witchcraft to temporarily possess the power of a level 3 living corpse." Old Gray put his hand on Cooper's back, and the Black Death energy on the corpse monument was transmitted to Cooper through Old Gray. The Black Death energy quickly penetrated from the 7 orifices on Cooper's face. Not only did Cooper not feel any discomfort, but his abilities were greatly enhanced. "All the corpses in front of you are now your dolls. Go, Cooper, do your best to control them." Cooper looked at the complicated battlefield and did not expect that he would become the protagonist. He activated his power of living corpses and tried to establish contact with all corpses. At the beginning, he sensed the location of all the corpses, including those that could fight and those that had been reduced to pieces. He then focused on those corpses that could still fight. The level 4 demonic wolf is the most critical. The cavalry, Rudolph, and Butcher are fighting hard against the level 4 demonic wolf. He can sense all corpses, but he cannot yet control them. I can't control the body, what should I do, teacher? At the same time, Cooper also understood that the corpse monument and the Black Death energy could enhance the ability of the living corpse, making it easier for the living corpse to control the corpse. Black Death auras spread across the battlefield, and Cooper's consciousness became smoother as it moved with the Black Death aura. Be patient, you will be able to control all the corpses in no time. Old Gray's voice came from behind, making Cooper feel very reassured. The next moment, the battlefield suddenly became quiet, and all the corpses paused. Butcher and Rudolph both looked in the direction of Old Gray. Is Old Gray exhausted? Looking at the demonic wolf that was charging crazily towards Lehman Town, both Rudolph and Butcher saw the despair in each other's eyes. The demon wolf rushing at the front has even fought with the druids. Druids are stronger than militiamen, so the druids fight on the front line. Not to be outdone, the militiamen took aim and fired. Since there are still people resisting, let's continue. Rudolph squeezed the star power in his body and once again fired the splitting purple fire at the level 4 demon wolf. In the town of Lehman, the demon wolves have been strangled with those who mustered up the courage to fight against the wolf tide. You don't need to look closely to know that the ending is very miserable. The druids were torn to pieces by the demon wolves, the militiamen were trampled to death by the demon wolves, and the sound of gunfire could not stop the rout. In the dark air, Cooper raised his head. The sacrifices of the druids, militia, and police department are meaningful. Cooper used the teeth of level 3 zombies to briefly master the abilities of level 3 zombies, and the corpses started to move again. Cooper felt that his head was going to explode. Each hair seemed to have a different idea, standing up and pointing in different directions. It was Cooper trying his best to manipulate each corpse. What Cooper didn't know was that the transfer of control meant that Old Gray had fallen. At this time, Cooper himself was connected to the corpse monument with Black Death energy. After Old Gray fell down, a black arm stretched out from the corpse monument. This arm had dark golden runes on it, as if it were an arm stretching out from hell. The arm grabbed Old Gray's ankle and pulled it. Old Gray slowly dragged into the corpse monument until it disappeared. The superload caused Cooper's fragile nervous system to collapse, and his eyeballs were instantly filled with bloodshot eyes. However, the corpses on the battlefield possess a new vitality, which is the power brought by the young new owner. Maybe it was 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Cooper seemed to be a corpse at this time, motionless. He persisted and has been persisting. Until people saw 5 airships in the distance. Gendarmes. The gendarmes of the Parliament are here. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 206. 5 airships flew towards Lehman Town, with the Alchemy Council's Gear of Truth badge printed on the airships. The airship's propeller roared, taking the airship forward quickly. Rudolph and Butcher looked at each other and knew their mission was accomplished. Next, there will be no need for either of them. Butcher strode backwards and jumped out of the fight, while Rudolph quickly fell to the ground. What we need to do at this time is to quickly leave the battlefield to avoid being accidentally injured by artillery fire. The artillery of the Constitutional Army is not that smart and can distinguish who is a good heretic and who is a bad heretic. In their eyes, they are all damned heretics. After stepping on the ground, Rudolph's feet became weak. This night's battle consumed too much star power. It was completely drained once, and then drained again after replenishment. Neither he nor Yvonne had ever been so fierce. When parting with Butcher, Rudolph couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Butcher, have you ever discussed human reproduction and the mysteries of life with a female giant in giant form?" Seeing Rudolph's curious eyes, Butcher really wanted to give him a stick. "No. Can you think of something normal? That's such a shame." I thought you would have experienced the shaking of the earth. Butcher left without looking back, but why was he a little excited? Rudolph's proposal seemed quite good. At this time, the battle was over. Rudolph felt extremely relaxed for a moment. He remembered the scene he had just seen. Butcher's giant form was 30 meters high. His symbol of man was taller than a human, nearly 3 meters tall. He didn't know that Claude had seen it. Would you be envious? Vanya also fell to the ground, and the two plunged into the surrounding chaos. Vanya took advantage of the chaos and disappeared into Rudolph's hands. After the airship joined the battle, Rudolph saw the corpses falling again and wondered what the problem was with Old Gray. He looked towards the distant sky and first saw the fire on the airship. Subconsciously, he immediately fell to the ground. The 5 airships were spread out horizontally in the sky, showing their sides in front. There were cannons on the sides. These cannons spit out shells continuously, and the shells roared and hit the wolf wave. Roars and vibrations spread throughout the town of Lehman. Rudolph looked at the explosion caused by the artillery shell in surprise. The power of this artillery was more powerful than the shells he had seen in war movies in his previous life. It was indeed the work of an alchemist. The artillery shells of the Constitutional Army in Fabreau City are mainly alchemy artillery shells produced with the participation of level 4 alchemists, which have a very strong killing effect. Speaker Quint and Deputy Speaker Abel of the Alchemy Parliament need to personally participate in the production of cannonballs every year to defend Fabreau City. The targets of most of the shells were level 4 demon wolves. Under the continuous bombardment, the level 4 demon wolves were instantly overturned. Rudolph was not in the mood to observe how much damage the shells would do to the level 4 demonic wolf, so he took advantage of the chaos and walked towards Lehman town. Facing the low-level demon wolves blocking the way, Rudolph waved his cane and used the wolf blade to cut them into several pieces. At the same time, the airship got closer and Rudolph heard the sound of machine guns again. There are more than a dozen machine gun positions on both sides of each airship. The machine guns firing hundreds of rounds per minute spit out tongues of fire, and when they hit the ground, they stirred up fistfuls of earth, smashing down the flesh and blood and creating pieces of broken limbs. Using danger intuition, Rudolph moved forward on the battlefield quickly and slowly, moving towards the town of Lehman. It's a pity that Old Gray's collection is scattered here like this. It took Rudolph more than 10 minutes to reach the entrance of Lehman town. The main guns and machine guns also roared for more than 10 minutes. Rudolph first saw the druid who suffered heavy casualties. It's just that I didn't see the bard druid. He was a level 3 druid. But you can't ask for anything more from Doom. He is just a bard druid and has no obligation to guard Lehman town. Utcher is not dead, he is taking care of the last 2 people alive in their tribe. Seeing the wizard Rudolph, Utcher didn't say much. Rudolph has been fighting with the level 4 werewolf for so long. Now no one cares about Rudolph's identity. It doesn't matter whether he is a wizard or not. If it wasn't for Rudolph, the town of Lehman would have been destroyed long ago. After passing the druids, Rudolph saw the militia. More than half of the hundreds of militiamen died, leaving only more than 60 people. Among the dead people, there were many people Rudolph was familiar with, as well as among the living people. Rudolph saw Base, the owner of the bathhouse, at the first sight. Base was surrounded by puddles of mud, which trapped 3 demonic wolves. Bass turned out to be an apostle, which was beyond Rudolph's expectation. This kind of ability should be the priest of the evil god Annihilation. Seeing Rudolph, the first reaction of the bathhouse owner Base was, "Isn't Rudolph here to settle accounts?" There was still a lot of money in the VIP card, but Base didn't want to give it. So Base immediately groaned, "My arm must be broken, my waist must be broken, someone help me, see if I'm paralyzed." Rudolph walked up to Base and knelt down to take a look at him. "Oh, you're fine. You were just injured by the recoil of the gun. It's nothing serious." After seeing Rudolph walking away, the bathhouse owner breathed a sigh of relief. He just said, in this chaos, who would think of asking for the money in the recharged card? Rudolph came to the constable again and stood beside Sam. The living patrol officers stood in a circle, lowering their heads and silently looking at the people lying on the ground. The people lying on the ground were all police officers who died at the hands of the demon wolf. The first one is Old Babe. Unexpectedly, he not only received an honorable promotion before retiring, but also made an honorable sacrifice before retiring. After all, it was the person who wanted to retire the most who didn't make it. There were only 3 patrolmen alive. Rudolph observed a moment of silence and left. The successive deaths had made Rudolph numb, and when he came to the corpse monument, it was still a little hard to accept. Butcher found some clothes somewhere and put them on. He was already standing in front of the stone monument. Unexpectedly, Old Gray died. Following Butcher's gaze, Rudolph saw Old Gray's name. There was no Old Gray around, and no Old Gray's body. There are more than a dozen names on the corpse monument, and the last one is Old Gray. Only this name proves that Old Gray once lived. Cooper was unconscious under the corpse monument. Rudolph checked and found that the situation was very bad. "Leave him alone," Butcher said, "he needs to experience this life of death by himself. If he can wake up, according to the promotion principle of living zombies, he will be a level 3 living zombie. If he can't wake up, there will be Cooper's name on the corpse tablet." The sound of artillery fire gradually decreased, the airship's main gun blasted away the wolf tide, and an airship landed on the ground. Claude walked off the airship with an ugly expression. Seeing that the town of Lehman behind was still the same as before, he felt a little lucky. Looking at the corpses strewn all over the place at the entrance to Lehman town, it was extremely bitter. Claude came to the corpse monument first. Looking at Old Gray's name on the corpse monument, Claude didn't know what to say. The butcher didn't care whether Claude was in a good mood or not. "Claude, I didn't expect you to be so selfless and take so long to bring people here. The town of Lehman must not be the first town supported by the military police, right?" Claude swallowed hard before saying, "Indeed not. The town of Gas from Thor Mining and the town of Mondo from Viscount Saywin are both in front of us, and we are third." Rudolph saw that the atmosphere was not right and wanted to say something to lighten the atmosphere. "The third one is also good. Deputy Director Claude has forgotten that no one will forget so many lovers in Lehman Town. He has tried his best. There are a lot of his acquaintances here, aren't they? If I guess correctly, there is no need for rescue in the other 3 towns, right? There is no way they can survive the wolf tide until now." The light of the cigarette was maintained. Claude took a long drag on the cigarette and swallowed it without spitting it out. He just said, "Thank you." Butcher sneered. "You're welcome, we're not guarding Lehman Town for you. I just don't want the town where I'm hiding to be destroyed before I'm exposed. I just want to know, Director Claude, does Fabro City really know nothing about this wolf tide?" Claude sighed. "Butcher, I can assure you that at least my teacher, Deputy Speaker Abel, has no knowledge at all. He is angrily pursuing this matter." "Why?" Fabro City responded so slowly. Claude's face looked ugly, and Deputy Speaker Abel was very passive on this matter. Butcher waved his hand angrily. "Go to hell with the Alchemy Council. The city center of Fabro City is dirtier than the sewers of Tarim." After saying that, Butcher strode away. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 207. Butcher's figure disappeared, and he didn't know where he would go to continue hiding. Butcher just used a lot of swear words, but Rudolph had a good impression of him. Every time Genji slaughters more dogs, Butcher is very happy and hopes that he can find a female giant who is willing to cooperate. Claude turned to Rudolph and said, "Old Gray and I have an agreement. We have some arrangements for Cooper in the future. You can tell him when he wakes up." "Okay. Director Claude, old." Rudolph did not continue. He originally wanted to say that Old Baby and several patrol officers were dead, but he did not say anything, so he let Claude go and see for himself. "What's wrong?" "Fine." After talking about Cooper's arrangements, Claude walked towards the people at the police station. The bodies of Old Baby and several patrolmen were lying on the ground, covered with white cloth. Claude remembered that he had spent a lot of effort some time ago to persuade Old Baby to take over the position of Sheriff of Lemontown. "My mouth was dry at the time, and every word seemed to be plotting against Old Baby. And those patrol policemen and trainee patrol policemen only earn 2 or 3 silver shields a month, so why are they working so hard for it? These patrol officers are ordinary people who would be happy if they were given more subsidies. Old Baby has no children, but these patrolmen have families. Can they comfort their families by asking for more solatium?" At this moment, Claude understood why Butcher said that the Alchemy Council was dirtier than the sewers. Did the Alchemy Council really find out nothing about such a large-scale wolf tide? Monitoring the wilderness is one of the responsibilities of the Judicial Office. The wolf wave reached the town, and the military police received early warning. Claude felt that everyone in the Judgment Department should be pulled out and shot. But Claude knew that this was impossible. The Judgment Office was the power of Speaker Quint. Standing in front of several pieces of white cloth, Claude silently thought that if possible, he should take revenge on Old Baby and these patrols. He and Sam and the militia captain said, "Sam, I now appoint you as the acting chief of the Lemontown Police Department. Now, together with the militia captain, go to the town to inform everyone to leave Lemontown immediately and take refuge in Fabreau City overnight. Okay, after we bury the body, we'll go take shelter." "No," Claude said seriously, "there is no time to bury the body. I will arrange for someone to deal with the body. You guys should take refuge first." After looking at Baby's body for a few more seconds, Claude walked back to Rudolph. "Rudolph, if Cooper wakes up, you and Cooper buried these people together." "Okay. We should avenge these people." Rudolph rarely saw Claude's serious look. At this moment, he knew that Claude was serious. "I think this will be a little difficult, but we must not let those executioners go." Claude walked towards the airship. Rudolph looked at his back and felt that he should be sad now. His shoulders were so low and he looked so depressed. After the 5 airships gathered together, they rushed to the next town. In Butcher's words, the other 3 towns must have been destroyed by the wolf tide, but the Constitutional Army needed to complete its mission, even if it was just a pretense. Rudolph found Zack, who was standing at the end of the militiamen, paying silent tribute to the fallen militiamen. "Zack, take the beggar from Lemontown to this address." Rudolph gave Zack a note. "I don't know the words." "It's okay, just take it and ask for directions. There will be a lot of people crowded into Fabreau City, and you need a shelter." Ivan opened a workhouse, the Dordo District Workhouse. "Go there, Ivan Feng Na will take care of you." "Thank you, and thank you Miss Ivan." When passing by the little silver snake Yanilla, Rudolph was a little surprised. "We haven't seen each other for more than half a year, and Yanilla has grown a lot taller." This time Yanilla no longer hated Rudolph because she hated Claude, but just looked at Rudolph with curiosity. Rudolph is a legend in Lemontown, the patrol captain who does not charge protection fees, the Scorpio wizard, the escaped Rudolph, and now he is the Rudolph who blocks the level 4 werewolf in Wolftide. Among the crowd, Yanilla's eyes were very bright, staring straight at Rudolph. Men are always like this. When a woman stares at them, they tend to get distracted and want to get a haircut. When Rudolph touched his hair, he found that the hairstyle was messed up by the werewolf's breath, and the confidence he had just established was gone in an instant. "Stop looking. If you look again, I'll make you into a witchcraft weapon." The little girl was so frightened that she turned around with her mouth flat. Yanilla thought to herself that Silver Snake's promotion conditions, charm, or attraction, captured a person who could not be conquered. She felt that this dangerous wizard was a good target to conquer. Sam and the militia captain took the surviving people into Lehman Town. According to Claude's arrangement, they didn't even dispose of the bodies. The streets of Lehman Town were already filled with people. When they saw the Constitutional Army's airship coming, they came out of their hiding places one by one and waited expectantly at the roadside. But when they saw that the militia team was reduced by more than half, everyone couldn't help crying. The townspeople packed up their things overnight and left the town of Lehman without taking any large items, taking only money and small valuables. Under the escort of the militia and the police department, they moved to Fabreau City in the north. An hour later, Cooper finally woke up. Woke up. Cooper slowly opened his eyes when he heard Rudolph's voice. When he sat up, he found that there were only two of them alive around him. The wolf tide had receded, the airship was gone, and the people in Lehman Town had also disappeared. However, in Cooper's perception, there were corpses all around, corpses everywhere. He turned around quickly and looked for Old Gray, but he didn't see Old Gray's body. Here Rudolph pointed to the corpse monument, and the last person's name on it was Old Gray. Cooper put his hand on the corpse monument, not knowing what he was sensing. "If it gets better, let's work first." Cooper turned around, and all the apostle corpses that originally belonged to Old Gray stood up. Viscount Savin's father, the level 3 knight corpse, came to Cooper with the remaining 6 knights. The corpses of various types of apostles staggered and crawled up, and the corpses of the zombies walked among the other corpses to repair the damage for the corpses. If there were missing arms and legs, the corpses of the zombies would directly replace one with another corpse, and sew it with the corpse thread, and the assembly looked pretty good. The corpses of 8 level 3 apostles, plus the corpses of 5 level 3 werewolves with their heads sewn back, this is Cooper's strongest combat power now. In addition, there were fewer level 2 and level 1 apostles, with only more than 600 left. Even so, Cooper's strength still frightened Rudolph. Cooper could break through a town by himself, so he had no pressure. "We need to bury the people in Lehman first." The people in Lehman were covered with white cloth, and Cooper's collection lifted the bodies of these people and walked to the cemetery. Cooper did not move the bodies of the old baby and the druid, and would let them rest in the ground. This may be the last time the cemetery in Lehman was used. There were 87 new tombs neatly arranged there. Rudolph and Cooper mourned for those who sacrificed for the town. Cooper locked the door of the cemetery. Rudolph felt that this was unnecessary, because the walls of the cemetery could fall down or collapse, and there was no need to go through the door to enter the cemetery. However, Cooper locked it very seriously, and Rudolph did not say anything. After locking the door, Cooper asked, "What are we going to do next?" "We're going to Fabreau, to the South City Cemetery in Fabreau, which is now the cemetery." On the way to Fabreau, Rudolph and Cooper passed through the town of Lehman. When they reached number 15, Pagey Street, Rudolph felt a little melancholy. "I wanted to sell this house, and I spent so much money on it." Sure enough, the mansions in small places are not worth much, and they are not as good as the slums in big cities. There are beautiful benches on the sidewalk of Pagey Street. Cooper said, "I want to take a break." After that, Cooper leaned back, put the heavy stone tablet on his back on the ground, stood up and rubbed his shoulders. Hundreds of corpses were still following them not far away, and Cooper's corpses would be hidden in the cemetery in Fabreau City in the future. Rudolph couldn't help but ask, "It won't take long for you to find a corpse to carry it for you, do you have to do it yourself?" Cooper just shook his head. "Old Gray said that some things must be done by yourself, and you can't let the corpse do it for you, such as confessing to the corpse. Rudolph just thought that this might be some special requirements of the corpse monument zombie. Looking at Cooper, Rudolph was a little doubtful whether he was the protagonist. Look at Cooper, under the arrangement of Old Grey, he quickly became a level 3 zombie, only a little slower than Rudolph. This corpse monument is also very strange. Rudolph saw Cooper communicate with the corpse monument through the Black Death energy. Cooper seemed to be able to receive some inheritance from the corpse monument. His face was full of floating black energy, which was a bit scary. Cooper, Claude said he and Old Grey have an agreement. You can go to the South City Cemetery in Fabreau City to be a gravekeeper. The South City Cemetery is responsible for the burial of the bodies in the two districts of Dordo and Bayeux. It is much more prosperous than the Lehman Town Cemetery. Are you sure you can use the word prosperous to describe the cemetery? Almost, that's the meaning, Rudolph said. Yvonne and I are now in Dordo district. We can take care of each other in Fabreau City. Okay. Cooper agreed without hesitation. What he has to do now is to accumulate collections slowly like Old Grey. This is the foundation of his life. In addition, he has to find an opportunity to become a level 4 zombie. Without the support of Old Grey, his promotion is no longer safe. Promotion requires resurrection from the dead. Without complete certainty, he may die without resurrection. He doesn't know anyone in Fabreau City. In addition to Claude's promise, he only knows Rudolph and Yvonne. Rudolph continued. Now I am the only one left in the giant alliance of Lehman Town, so I automatically became the leader. Old Grey told me before he died that if you become a level 3 zombie, I will absorb you as one of the giants. Cooper was a little confused. Did the teacher really say that before he died? Of course, now you are also one of the giants of the giant alliance of Lehman Town. Giant. Doesn't it sound cool? Not very cool. This name is as tasteless as the 3 bullies in a certain village. Cooper carried the stone tablet again. Except for you who are still alive and kicking, the giants are dead or escaped, there is no appeal. Speaking of which, Lehman Town is about to disappear. Is there any need for the giant alliance of Lehman Town to exist? You are right, it should be slightly adjusted. But changing it to the Fabreau Giant Alliance is a bit guilty. Those in the Alchemy Council are the giants. Why not call it the Dordo District Head Alliance? How about it? Isn't it also classy? Rudolph also stood up and continued on his way. Of course, as the leader, I think the purpose of the Giant Alliance has changed. The first thing we need to do is to take care of each other in this chaotic Fabreau City. This Old Grey really said that he wanted me to continue to help you for a while after his death. Cooper stopped refutation. He believed that the only person around him who could speak was the wizard in front of him. Rudolph said, "Look, in order to help you, I even gave you the level 3 zombie tooth, and I don't need you to return the gift. That's my teacher's zombie tooth." He said that he just didn't expect someone to be so bold and dare to go to the cemetery to dig his things. Later, he felt that it was a bit cheap to argue with you, so he didn't care for the time being. Then he made a big mistake. When he wants to care, he may not be able to beat me. Cooper stopped and looked at Rudolph with a heavy corpse on his back. Rudolph, why are you so mentally positive? You are still in the mood to joke at this time. If you didn't fight the level 4 werewolf for Lehman Town, I would think you are a heartless person just by looking at your current appearance. Rudolph patted Cooper's shoulder, and the tombstone almost fell off his back. Cooper, you have died 3 times. I don't know how you feel about death. I have only died once, but I have already gained a great enlightenment. If you are alive, look forward. If you die tomorrow, and you are still frowning today, aren't you at a loss? Claude and I will definitely avenge old baby and those patrolmen. Just don't forget the key things. Cooper's pace was very slow. When they entered Fabreau City, it was already the second night. Rudolph kept watch for Cooper, and Cooper's collections walked into the South City Cemetery one by one and went underground. Let's go. This cemetery won't prepare food for us tonight. Let's go to the orphanage first. Yvonne will prepare a midnight snack for us. In the orphanage, when Yvonne saw Rudolph through the glass, she felt relieved, ran out quickly, and hugged Rudolph tightly. The news of the wolf tide was too terrible. She was very worried about Rudolph, afraid that Rudolph would impulsively make mistakes for Lehmantown. If she had known earlier, she should have gone to Lehmantown. Who knew that the wolf tide came so suddenly? Cooper, long time no see. Yvonne also saw Cooper on the side and greeted Cooper. Miss Yvonne, long time no see. Seeing Yvonne, Cooper felt much better. It's not that he had any other feelings, but because she was also one of his acquaintances. After experiencing a big change, seeing an acquaintance would calm his panic. He turned to Rudolph and asked, "Is Miss Yvonne also one of the giants?" "Of course." "Then I agree to join your Dordo Giant Alliance." "After all this time, you didn't agree before." "I agree now." Cooper entered the orphanage. He saw many children in the orphanage. Cooper had met these children once or twice. They were all beggars from Lehmantown. Zack brought all the beggars to the orphanage yesterday according to the address given by Rudolph. Here, they have eaten several full meals. Yvonne hired 2 cooks to cook dinner for a dozen children. After a simple supper, Rudolph poured a glass of wine for Cooper. "Wine, this is a good thing. Have you ever drunk it?" "Of course I have." "I thought you only drank the northwest wind in the wilderness." "Have a sip and try it." "Northwest wind? Can you drink the northwest wind?" "Oh, I once heard a bard say that there is a strange custom in a faraway place. When you are hungry and poor, you can fill your stomach by drinking some northwest wind. That place is really interesting." After taking a sip of wine, Cooper started coughing, and tears came out of his eyes. He didn't expect that the sip of wine was so strong. This sip of wine also warmed up Cooper's body, and the cold zombie body had some temperature. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 208. After the meal, Rudolph and Cooper stayed in the reception room to drink tea. Zack heard Dean Yvonne say that Rudolph called him and hurried to the reception room. "Sit down," Zack. Rudolph pointed to a chair. After watching Zack sit down, Rudolph said, "I think Yvonne has briefly spoken to you. The almshouse is a charitable institution affiliated with the Alchemy Council. The shelter will sign a formal adoption agreement with you. This adoption agreement can also change the adopter. If there are kind-hearted people willing to adopt one of your children, after our review, they can be sent to the home of the adoptive father and mother." Rudolph took out an adoption agreement. "Zack, this is the adoption agreement between you and the Dordo District Almshouse." Zack looked at the agreement and felt a little embarrassed. "I can't read." "It doesn't matter. This is a standard contract. You can just press your fingerprints." Zack pressed his fingerprint on the bottom of the agreement. Rudolph put away the adoption agreement with satisfaction. "Of course, that's not what I want to say. What I want to say is the conditions for graduation from the workhouse." Zack was a little uneasy. He didn't know what Rudolph wanted to say and why he mentioned graduation. Children in the workhouse will graduate from the workhouse after they reach the age of 15. Since the financial situation of the almshouses is not very good, the methods of all almshouses are the same. Children who graduate need to donate half of their income within 2 years back to the almshouses to support other children when they grow up. "I do," Zack said quickly. Rudolph nodded, indicating that he knew Zack was willing. "This condition is not excessive. In fact, it is just to let the children who go out of the workhouse know gratitude and repayment. The salary donated is far from enough to run a workhouse." Rudolph came up with another agreement. "Of course, the salary donation for graduation must also be bound by an agreement. This is a love return agreement. Zach, you are over 15 years old, so you can graduate. Zach pressed his lead on the second agreement. Cooper on the side couldn't help but speak. He couldn't stand it anymore. Rudolph, it's you. In half a minute and 2 agreements, you can earn half of this child's salary for the next 2 years. Rudolph didn't feel ashamed at all. He turned to Cooper and said, "Don't laugh yet. You just saw the Nanjing District Cemetery, but it's much bigger than the Lemontown Cemetery. You can't handle it alone. Zach is the first employee I recommend to you. This young man is serious and careful. He is also a servant of the god of pain. He is more capable than ordinary people. You laughed too early, you need to pay his salary." Cooper stopped laughing. "I have no money. I can lend it to you at high interest rates. Doesn't it hurt your conscience to say this? My brothers are settling the accounts. They are both giants. Do you still lack this little interest?" Cooper frowned and thought about it. The teacher only left him a corpse tablet and no money. After sighing, he had to say, "Well, it looks like I'm going to have to borrow a lot of money. Just ask." After Cooper hesitated, 30 gold shields, do you have it?" Seeing Rudolph's disbelief, Cooper quickly changed his words, 10 gold shields, I think 10 gold shields is enough." Rudolph took out his wallet. "I even think you are humiliating me. 30 gold shields? 10 gold shields? This is not about me borrowing money, you are looking down on me. I was just kidding you. How could I ask you for interest? I'll scare you." 100 gold shields were placed on the table, and Rudolph said, "Within 2 years, I can pay back my principal. The interest rate is 0%, which is much more conscientious than the banks in the Alchemy Council. The annual interest rate on loans from Fabro Bank is an astonishing 22%. What about the conditions?" Hearing what Cooper said, Rudolph was stunned for a moment before speaking. "I didn't expect that you know me so well. There are indeed conditions." Cooper knew that Rudolph would not let anyone take advantage of him unless he would take advantage of him even more. "I will build a secret chamber in your cemetery." Upon hearing this condition, Cooper agreed without hesitation. As for the function of the secret room, he didn't need to know, nor did he want to know. Wizards were always more mysterious than other apostles. Rudolph continued, "Originally I wanted Yvonne to spend the full moon night in the basement here, but if there is a cemetery, it would be better to have a cemetery." Hearing that it was about Yvonne, Cooper agreed even more. He looked at Zach. "Do you recommend him to become my employee?" "Recommended, servant of the god of pain, at least resist beating." At this time Zach spoke, "I am now a level 1 pain priest." Rudolph's pupils dilated instantly and he needed to reassess Zach's safety. Rudolph didn't want to mess with the sect of pain, now the bishop's sect of redemption. This is what Rudolph didn't discover. If the apostles don't use abilities, they are exactly the same as ordinary people. Zach saw Rudolph's expression becoming serious and said quickly, "I have nothing to do with the section. I was promoted only because a friend died in the wolf tide. That friend was a delivery boy in a bakery. He gave us a lot of bread. He was a militia member, so I also joined the militia." Upon hearing this answer, Cooper and Rudolph looked at each other. Priest of pain, is there such a way to be promoted? This proves that Zach is a good boy, and the death of a beggar friend is enough for him to advance through pain. "Zach, I am willing to hire you as an employee of the cemetery. Are you willing to come and work for me?" "I am willing." Zach knew that if a weak heretic like him faced the judgment office of Fabro City and the hidden painful sect in Fabro City, he would die quickly. Now that Rudolph and Cooper are helping him, he still has the possibility of continuing to live. Cooper remembered something again. "No, I borrowed money from you, and then paid Cooper a salary, and half of the salary will return to you." "Rudolph, your plan is really watertight. Otherwise, how can you say that old Gray asked me to take care of you?" Old Gray knows the gap between us. The next day, the three of them went to the South City Cemetery together. The cemetery in the South City district is very large, almost 4 times the size of the Lehman Town Cemetery. People in the Bayer district and the Dordo district will be buried in this cemetery after they die. The three of them walked a distance from the entrance of the cemetery to the gravekeeper's hut. Rudolph looked at the 2-story house and said, "Even the duty room is on the 2nd floor, it looks good." The original gravekeeper had received a notice from the police station and knew that someone would come to hand over to him. When he saw 3 young people under 20 years old, the old former gravekeeper was a little surprised. But he didn't say much. "I have written down the things that need attention on paper. This cemetery will be handed over to you in the future. I will retire now, and I wish you good luck." Watching the former gravekeeper leave without any nostalgia, Rudolph sighed. Retirement is good, and safe retirement is the best thing. Poor old baby, I don't know how many days the number on his notebook with the countdown to retirement is fixed. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 209. Claude followed the police station's registration information and came to a remote street in Dordo district. When registering at the Dordo district almshouse, the address was filled in here. The buildings on both sides of the street are not full. To put it mildly, there will be street parks from time to time. To put it mildly, it is very desolate, with a lot of wasteland on both sides of the street. One house was brightly lit, all the windows were lit, and some children could be seen running around inside. Workhouse children can become very excited when adults are not around. There was a sign on the door of the house that read Dordo District Almshouse, and Claude knocked on the door. There were footsteps inside the door, and not long after, Cooper opened the door. Claude was a little surprised. "Oh, Cooper, you are here too. The residence in the cemetery is still being cleaned up, so I'll stay here for the next few days." Claude enters the almshouse and sees Rudolph repairing a chair. "Director, welcome to the almshouse." Rudolph put the almost repaired chair to one side. "Sit down, Director Claude." Claude sat down, and then said with some pain, "Rudolph, did you drive a nail from the bottom up?" Rudolph was just about to pack up his tools when he remembered that this was indeed the case. Quick, let me fix it again, so that no child will get hurt." Watching Rudolph repairing the chair, and there was a child beside Rudolph curiously watching Rudolph playing with the hammer, Claude felt that this almshouse was very warm. Did anyone care about the beggars in the past whether they had a chair to sit on? Now there is not only one, but also a deputy director to serve as their guinea pig. "I finally completed the task Yvonne gave me. This chair is really difficult to repair." He took Claude and Cooper to the reception room and closed the door to isolate all the sounds of the children outside. The reception room of the workhouse is very simple, with a table, a few chairs, and a filing cabinet where the files of the children in the workhouse are stored. Only the three of them were left, and Rudolph asked, "Director Claude, what is the situation now?" Rudolph and Cooper have only been active in their own small world these days, but they are also very concerned about the general situation of Fabreau City. After investigation, it was found that the man who controlled this wolf tide was Weston, the Red Wolf King, and 3 towns were completely destroyed. Claude has become a lot more serious recently, and the pressure he is facing makes him rarely smile. Wolf King, only werewolves above level 5 can be called Wolf King. The Red Wolf King also means that he is a mutant werewolf. Thanks to your efforts in Lehman Town, everyone is fine and they have successfully taken refuge in Fabreau City. However, there are many werewolves in Lehman Town now. The town of Gas where Thor Mining is located and the town of Mundo owned by Viscount Saywin also survived. Viscount Saywin even led his own cavalry to directly kill the invading level 4 demon wolf. Viscount Saywin was also successfully promoted and became level 4 knight. Rudolph took a breath and looked at Cooper. "Cooper, from now on, you have to go around Viscount Saywin. He is a ruthless man. He is a level 4 knight. Don't let him find out that you have made his father a collection. The knight is truly a proud man of heaven, and the promotion of Viscount Xuanhuan also represents a sudden increase in the status of the nobleman in Fabreau City. Especially at this time, it is even more important. If Viscount Xuanhuan still wants to be promoted, he can just take his people and go directly to the Red Wolf King Mang. Rudolph immediately realized that Viscount Xuanhuan was in urgent need of level 3 knights to provide him with ultimate strength. Maybe Jennifer would also have a wave of opportunities. Cooper was also a little scared. It should be fine. The body of Viscount Xuanhuan's father was always wearing a helmet. Except for a few of us, who knows that it is Viscount Xuanhuan's father? Rudolph asked again, what did the Alchemy Council say? Is there a plan to eliminate the Red Wolf King? Yes, Claude said. 3 municipalities in Vichy County have been attacked by wolf waves, and the county council has entered a state of war. This is a provocation to the Alchemy Council. The Alchemy Council will not sit idly by and wait for them. The only thing that will greet them is the Alchemy Council's revenge. The Alchemy Council of Fabreau City has no ability to retaliate against the Red Wolf King. The City Council has just passed a resolution. Deputy Speaker Abel and I were sent to the County Council to persuade the County Council to organize a thorough cleanup of the Red Wolf King's forces. Not only the invading werewolves, but also all the tribes of the Red Wolf King in the wilderness will be completely wiped out by the Constitutional Army. Red Wolf King Weston should not dare to attack Fabreau City, and with the promotion of Viscount Xuanhuan, Fabreau City should be safe for the time being. Rudolph breathed a sigh of relief. If the county council took action, the wolf tide should end soon. If the county council is not enough, there will be a provincial council. If the provincial council is not enough, there will be a regional council. If the regional council is not enough, there will be a royal capital council. In short, the Alchemy Council will not sit back and watch the wolf tide grow bigger. Rudolph, I didn't come to you just to tell you this, Claude continued. My teacher, Deputy Speaker Abel, believes that we should not only keep an eye on the wolf tide outside Fabreau City, but also keep an eye on the many forces in Fabreau City. This is where the parliament is bad, and its efficiency is very low. Deputy Speaker Abel and I need to go to the county seat and initiate a meeting at the county assembly. Only after the county assembly passes it can the county's constitutional army be dispatched. Rudolph, you can't rest during our absence. The vampires need you to watch in secret. Only you can make me and Speaker Abel feel at ease. Rudolph nodded, very good, I'm tired of repairing chairs and serving rice. It's the full moon ceremony soon. I'll go see if the vampires have any other plots. However, Director, I happen to have a need that I need your help with. I'll solve it. What do you need? I need a cage of considerable size, made of level 4 alchemical steel. Level 4 alchemical steel? Do you need to lock up any high-level apostles? I can help you. There is one in Teacher Abel's laboratory. He has studied many high-level vampires and werewolves before. I will dismantle it and move it here for you. Will the vice speaker be unhappy? No, since the teacher became the vice speaker, he has no time to continue his research. Power is the best stimulant for men. That makes sense. After Claude left, Cooper said, no wonder you and Yvonne dared to open a relief home here. It turns out that your backer is the vice speaker. Although I haven't met the vice speaker in private, he is indeed our backer. As long as he is there, we don't have to worry about the pressure of the Judgment Bureau at least. Claude was very efficient. After a few days, he contacted Rudolph to pick up the cage made of level 4 alchemical steel. Rudolph and Cooper moved the cage to the cemetery late at night. Cooper used dozens of corpses to quickly build a secret room in the cemetery, and several people installed cages in the secret room. After the cage was built, Rudolph was about to remove the sound insulation cotton in the basement of the orphanage, but was stopped by Yvonne, who said, Don't remove the sound insulation cotton, let's keep it for use. Rudolph slapped his head and said, "You are still thoughtful, how about installing these sound insulation cotton in the bedroom? The children live upstairs, at least put some sound insulation cotton on the ceiling." That makes sense. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 210. Deputy Speaker Abel and Claude left Fabreau. Rudolph felt insecure and acted more cautiously. His principle was to investigate but not act, and wait for the backers to come back. 2 days later, during the full moon sacrifice in August, Rudolph disguised himself and left the orphanage. The streets of the Dordo district became lively and crowded with people from several surrounding towns who came here to take refuge. Not to mention Lehman, all of them hid in Fabreau. The people of Gas and Mondo were the same. They felt that Fabreau was safe. The wolf tide stopped after attacking once, but there was still a possibility of being attacked. The people on the street were in a hurry, either trying to earn a little copper shield, running for bread, or buying some things for their newly rented home. Rudolph met someone he had seen in Lehman on the road, but he didn't say hello. To avoid being discovered, he lowered the brim of his hat and walked hurriedly. Rudolph and Ivan also disguised themselves in the orphanage. Rudolph mainly relied on hats and beards, and Ivan mainly relied on glasses and makeup. No matter how well Rudolph and Ivan disguised themselves, there would be a day when they would be exposed. At that time, even if the judiciary would not pursue them, the Ravenos would come to trouble them. Once they were exposed, the two of them would embark on the road of escape again. It was unknown when this bad situation would improve. Rudolph first came to the city police station, and in an office in the police station, he waited for the person he was looking for. It was easier to enter the police station. Claude had arranged it before he left, and he was safe here. Soon, 2 people entered the office reserved by Claude for Rudolph, the witch hunter Captain Wayne and the word spirit Larry. Wayne spoke before Rudolph spoke. He said, "I have heard about what you and your friends did in Lehman Town. No wonder Deputy Director Claude has been trying to protect you. I didn't expect that you are still a good person. You can praise me for other things, but don't praise me for being a good person. I will have a psychological burden and will not be able to let go when I do bad things in the future. Besides, most good people die early, which is unlucky." Wayne shook his head and said nothing more. He dared to fight against a level 4 werewolf as a level 3 apostle, and it was a level 4 werewolf who turned into a demon wolf. Wayne felt that he could let go of some prejudice. Rudolph asked, "During this period, has the tribunal made any progress in its investigation of the Ravno family?" "No, not only that, some of the people we sent out died in accidents." Wayne took out a document and handed it to Rudolph. "We didn't find any evidence, but judging from the traces of death, the murderer's level is very high." Rudolph quickly looked at the document. In other words, the tribunal suspects that there are many level 3 heretics in Fabreau City. Yes, the tribunal is working frantically to collect intelligence on these heretics, but there is no breakthrough progress for the time being. Claude was skeptical of the tribunal. Rudolph thought that the frantic operation that Wayne mentioned might be idling, and it was hard to say whether it was really working. Rudolph remembered the full moon sacrifice last month. Behind the window of the red church, there stood several vampires, and the high priest Hera could only line up at the outermost edge. After memorizing some details in the file, Rudolph stood up. "If I have any progress here, I will let you know as soon as possible." The tribunal had no way to deal with Rudolph, nor with the Revno family. The famous tribunal seemed so incompetent in Fabreau City, and finally Rudolph had to do it himself. After leaving the police station, Rudolph walked towards the city red church. There are a total of 5 districts in Fabreau City, and each district has a red church. The largest red church, the City Red Church, is located in the Rondo district. Like Mondo Town, the Rondo district is the territory of Viscount Savin. The closer to the red church, the denser the flow of people, and no one pays attention to Rudolph. What surprised Rudolph was that only 3 sacrifices were prepared in the City Red Church today. There were sacrifices on the main altar in the center, and the surrounding side altars were empty. This caused dissatisfaction among the audience. There was only the main altar, and the people standing behind could not see the miserable appearance of the sacrifices at all, and there was no experience at all. A priest walked up to the altar at the last moment, and simply announced the types of sacrifices and the corresponding methods of sacrifice, and then the priest hurried away. The entire process of sacrifice was completely carried out by the assistants. Too hasty, Rudolph felt that the full moon sacrifice was extremely important to the Blood Clan, and it was the only way for the Blood Clan to please the Blood Clan ancestor, and it should not be so hasty. Rudolph, who had lost interest in the sacrifice, closed his eyes and waited for the full moon to whisper. Money, money, the benefits are exaggerated to be terrible. Rudolph looked around. Are there any alchemists around the Red Church? What can I do to get amazing benefits? We are indispensable in the wilderness, and we are indispensable in this feast. Wilderness, feast, Rudolph suspected that this was a werewolf. The blood pool is the key to everything. The more powerful the apostle, the more obvious the muttering. Rudolph ignored the low-pitched muttering and only focused on the obvious muttering. Some people were planning something around them. Full moon muttering could only hear the innermost desires of the apostles around him, but he had no way of knowing the details. Around the Red Church Square, 2 owls flew into the night sky. From the owl's perspective, no one was entering or leaving the Red Church's several entrances and exits. Wayne gave Rudolph the blueprint of the Red Church in Rudolph City, and he also suggested that Rudolph find a way to go in and take a look. Rudolph is not stupid, he will not do that. Just when Rudolph was controlling the entrance and exit of the Red Church, the owl suddenly saw several groups of bats flying towards it. Rudolph looked down at his pocket watch, and the owl was discovered. There is a ban on flying over Fabreau City for vampires, but these little bats cannot be completely restricted. The people of the Ravno family said that there are also wild bats, and their family cannot control all the bats. The bats bit the owl, and ordinary owls have no resistance to a large group of bats. The Red Church actually has a way to monitor the pet crystal. The pet crystal is not omnipotent, but it was still a surprise to him to be discovered by the Red Church. Before the owl died, it fell to the Red Church, and Rudolph saw a person in the crystal. A pale-skinned vampire stood in the highest window of the tower. He discovered the pet crystal. In the last scene in the pet crystal, the Blood Clan had a magic weapon in his hand, which was the oak cane of a level 3 druid. Rudolph closed his pocket watch, frowned, and thought quickly. Hira's oak cane had been taken away by the Judgment Bureau. According to Wayne, it has now become the collection of Speaker Quint. However, the Blood Clan still had an oak cane in their hands. Rudolph turned and left, away from the Red Church. In an alley, Rudolph saw Wayne, who had been waiting for him. Wayne put out his cigarette. He was already a little impatient. How is it? Are there any results? There are many forces in the Blood Clan discussing something, I don't know the specifics. Many forces? How many forces can there be in Fabreau City? Rudolph nodded. Well, investigate in this direction, I think this is a breakthrough. The wolf tide suddenly appeared, and stopped fighting halfway, as if the wolf tide only appeared for one night. Something that the Alchemy Council didn't know should have happened. After speaking, Rudolph prepared to leave. Where are you going? Won't you join me in the investigation? From Wayne's reaction, he seemed to know nothing. The Judgment Bureau behaved like trash and was not trustworthy. Rudolph did not look back, I'll go investigate another matter first and come back to you in a few days. The continuous appearance of level 3 druid magic tools is very abnormal. Moreover, Rudolph has to help Yvonne spend the full moon night in the second half of the night. The cemetery in the Dordo district seems to be peaceful. But somewhere in the cemetery, there are bursts of dull howling, which seems to come from deep underground. Cooper took a nap by the window, not paying any attention to the dull howling. In the cemetery at night, where there are tombstones and graves, it is normal to make some strange noises. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 211. On the outskirts of Fabreau, the Rhône River is surging. A tributary of the Rhône River, however, flows slowly and calmly. On the bank of a river bay of this river, there is a dense grove. A man sits between the grove and the riverbank. This man has been sitting here for a long time, so long that there is dust and a few fallen leaves on his hair. Wukiel, the former elder of the elk tribe who lost his tribe, sits on the bank with his eyelids drooping, staring at the river in front of him. His only two remaining tribesmen live on a farm on the outskirts of Fabreau, and he comes to this bank to look for opportunities. Alma secretly left the farm and stood far away. The grove blocked Wukiel's figure. She could only look at the river from a distance. She hoped that Wukiel could successfully find an opportunity to communicate with nature. For druids, Fabreau is so barren. Those powerful druid tribes all live in dense primeval forests or tropical Rhine forests. The druids there don't need to worry about their livelihoods. The rubber industry alone is enough for the druids in the primeval forest to live a rich life. More importantly, the natural energy in the primeval forest is very huge, which can allow druids to grow quickly. The forests in Fabreau city are very small, surrounded by hills, too close to the wilderness, and the werewolves are too strong. Therefore, the druid tribes here are weak. Alma's face is full of lingering worries. In Alma's memory, there has been no level 3 druids in Fabreau city for decades, and it is unknown whether Wukiel can become the first level 2 druid to break through. Wukiel sat cross-legged on the wet grass on the shore, feeling the temperature of the soil. The river water brought moist air into Wukiel's nose. His heartbeat was getting slower and slower, just like the branches and leaves of the treetops blown by the wind, slowly rhythmic. The promotion of druids requires enlightenment in communication with nature. The druids of the big tribes have the help of the primeval forest. In the forest, the trees of dozens or even hundreds of meters high cover the sky, the wide river is rushing, and the natural atmosphere is very strong, so it is relatively easy to be promoted. But Wukiel has nothing. He has no lush forest, and he has no tribe. There is only a small river in front of him and a sparse woods behind him. The promotion of druids is the most irregular. Some druids can blend into the forest wherever they stand, and their promotion speed is very fast. Some druids sit in meditation once a week, but they sweat profusely every time and can't calm down at all. Wukiel lost his tribe. When burying his tribesmen, he held a handful of soil with his hands. At a certain moment, his hand holding the soil froze in mid-air. He suddenly felt that he could be promoted. Wukiel no longer felt that the soil was only smelly, but soft and sweet. The breeze and the small river around him brought him the breath not far away. The conditions were very simple, but in the myth of the goddess of nature, the communication with the goddess of nature may be the moment when you see the leaves slowly falling, or the moment when you hear the spring breeze blowing on the grass. Wukiel closed his eyes, completely shutting off his vision, and began to perceive the surrounding plants and trees. He seemed to have turned into a stone by the river, and even his body temperature was slowly dropping. The fish slowly swung its tail by the river bank, but because it was swimming against the current, it seemed to stop in front of Wukiel. The pine tree jumped down from the tree, chewing unknown nuts while curiously looking at the stone by the river. The flying bird slowly fell and landed on Wukiel's shoulder. Until the sunset, Wukiel was stained with orange-red light. The communication with the sun was very smooth, and Wukiel was flowing with warm natural power. The communication with the night came immediately, and Wukiel's body temperature dropped further, and he was completely integrated into nature. In the dark night, the flying bird lay down on Wukiel's shoulder and fell asleep. The pine tree lay on Wukiel's legs and fell asleep. Animals that are active at night became active. The owl stood on Wukiel's head, turning its neck around, looking for insects and mice. No animal would think that Wukiel was a human being, and completely regarded him as a stone or even a mud block raised by the river. It was just that the stone had an inexplicable attraction, which made the animals unconsciously fall around him. A bat flew out of the tree hole and circled in the woods. It also discovered this special stone. This bat emitted unknown sound waves and communicated with its kind in the distance. The Revno family will not turn all bats into castle bats. These bats living in nature sometimes convey valuable information to the Revno family. After a day and a night, Wukiel welcomed the dawn by the river, and a little bit of fish belly white lit up in the sky. Threads of natural power entered Wukiel's body, not much, but enough for Wukiel to complete his promotion. If nothing unexpected happens, Wukiel's communication with nature will be very smooth this day and night, and he will complete his promotion when the morning light falls. Just when Wukiel was most relaxed and calm, he suddenly felt the restlessness of the wind. For some reason, he didn't hear the sound of the wind, but he felt something sharp tearing the air behind him. When he turned his head slightly, he saw a cold light. That was the Iron Batwing. The Iron Batwing of the Blood Clan. The morning light on the horizon has not appeared yet, and Wukiel doesn't know what to do at this time. If he dodges, his promotion will lose the last step and will end completely. I don't know when the next time there will be a moment of telepathy. If he didn't dodge, the Iron Batwing would cut into his abdomen and seriously injure him. The Iron Batwing's attack was very vicious, and it was not intended to kill Utcher. It seemed that it only wanted to seriously injure Utcher. Even if he delays until the last morning light comes, this level 3 vampire can still risk being burned to kill him as a level 3 druid at the last moment. Perhaps the purpose of this vampire is to kill Utcher after he becomes a level 3 druid. Just when Utcher's face was full of despair, a cane shot out and was thrust in front of Utcher. The tip of the cane was so sharp that it directly nailed the Iron Batwing to the ground. The Iron Batwings could no longer advance any further and could no longer attack Utcher. Another Batwing of the level 3 vampire moved forward crazily, trying to seriously injure Utcher again. However, he was greeted by a sound that sounded like a metal collision. Vanya suddenly appeared beside Utcher, using his Iron Batwings to block the next attack of the level 3 vampire. The face of the level 3 vampire suddenly turned purple and black. The poison was so powerful that the vampire was directly poisoned. In order to respond to the family's call, this vampire woke up in a hurry after being promoted. He only had the level 3 ability of Iron Batwings. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that his family had told him to be careful of the combination of the Scorpio Wizard, the Vampire Trader and the mutated White Wolf. The Vampire Trader was the one who used the Iron Batwings to block him, so the poison obviously belonged to the Scorpio Wizard. The cane was actually quenched with poison, and the poison spread quickly, causing the vampire's eyes to turn a strange purple color. Vanya pulled out his cane, grabbed the vampire, and left here quickly, not wanting to disturb Utcher's promotion. Utcher knew the second vampire who appeared. He was a friend of Rudolph and a person who had protected Lehman Town with Rudolph. The first ray of morning light lit up from a distance, illuminating Utcher's eyes. After learning that someone was protecting him, Utcher dismissed his distracting thoughts and enjoyed his morning. Half an hour later, Utcher came to the grove and saw Rudolph. "Thank you, Rudolph.